In 3, 2, 1, and welcome to FrameCast 15. That's a long ways away from number 1. In 3, oh no, 2.
What?
I'm
What'd you do?
getting feedback. How's it going, Drew?
Wait, who are you getting feedback from?
No, I'm getting feedback from my own tab, my own Twitch tab.
Yeah, I accidentally did that as well. Yeah. No, I'm good, thanks. Looking forward to doing this. Looking forward to chilling out afterwards, and then shenanigans, and try and play Code Vein.
How are you liking Code Vein? Actually, I've heard a
I've
lot of
barely,
good things about it.
I've had no time to play it at all. It's just like editing arbiters, editing oh gosh, what's the FrameCast highlights? Helping people move, meeting up with Lars, going to the cinema and things. We went to go see Joker,
Ooh,
and
how's that?
I'm not a huge fan. Like I give it like a solid 5 out of 10, maybe 6.
I've heard a
So
lot of good things about it, people liking it, but yeah, what didn't appeal to you?
oh, it's the plot. It's purely the plot. There were so many things that shattered my suspension of disbelief. It was just like, that wouldn't happen. That wouldn't happen. That makes no sense. Why on earth is this allowed to happen? So on and so forth. And it's just like, I can get behind comic book logic
Mm-hmm.
up to a certain point, right? And it's because of the whole, watching creative things, watching things like cinema sins, watching like reviews of stuff like Mauler, just break down how movies are in real life, and it's just like, oh, this is cool.
Yeah, I definitely have it when it comes around to things which I am familiar with, especially when it comes to like if they do some video shooting or anything in a film, and I'm like, yeah, you don't get audio like that,
Yeah,
not with a camera like that. That's not gonna work. No, no, like, it's I love movies. I really do. I think they're great, and they're great pieces of creative content, and I love watching them. But sometimes it's just you're just looking at them, it's like, no, that doesn't work that way.
no, it's the one of my favorite films to just absolutely rag on is Sunshine.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's sort of like a sci-fi horror movie that makes no sense in science whatsoever. It's like, we have to keep the computers in liquid nitrogen. They wouldn't work in sub-zero temperatures. Like, so they just wouldn't operate, because if you think about it, if the atoms aren't moving, then yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
the other thing I absolutely hate is like, oh, we have to change the trajectory of this ship, but the maths is so complicated. We have to work it out by hand. I'm like, the maths is too complicated for a computer to do. Not only that, but the guy screws it up.
And they have to work it out by hand. It's like, well, we have this machine that was practically made to do calculations, but we can do it by hand even better.
He's
For
like,
sure.
quick, get the abacus out.
It's
Yeah.
it's like trying to use this huge powerful like tool to like break something. It's like, no, it's not working. Let's try it by hand. Let's just try and break it apart.
Let's just
Anyway,
punch it.
that's that's part of just trying to be too ambitious for your own sake. And that's also what we're talking about today. Hell yeah. I'm proud of myself, and I just ruined it. No, today we're talking about, is Warframe too ambitious for its own sake? It's a question that has come up with me ever since watching the last Devstream. I think you watched it as well, didn't you?
Mm-hmm.
So last Devstream wasn't the most interesting Devstream in the world, but I think that they put out a couple of interesting things, especially when it comes to with regards of the upcoming update, the upcoming Railjack update, which is the next big update in Warframe this year, which everyone's been waiting for ever since the start. And yeah, it's not coming this week. It's not coming next week, as far as I'm aware, and it's going to be in 3 parts. What do you take from that?
So, sorry, I need to clear my throat. So, a lot of people seem to have this belief that Railjack will be coming out before the new war. Personally, I do not believe this. They think that, oh, because Railjack has this whole 3-segment thing, or 3 parts thing, it's gonna, push back the new war. I don't think so. I think the new war is still coming out for Christmas this year, and that is my point of view. I think the first part of Railjack will be exceptionally, hey, look, you've got a room. The room can be used to actually put together, name of the thing I can't remember, your ship, but you can't even build the ship yet. You have the dry dock, and then what else is there? The I think the Kuva Liches are going to come much sooner. That's the thing that I'm kind of surprised about. I thought the Kuva Liches were going to be part of Railjack, but it looks like they're going to be completely separate, and maybe Railjack will be used to enhance them.
So one of the things that I want to touch on real quickly is what you said about the new war coming out this Christmas. I am not expecting that. How do you believe? What do you think? Why do you think that it will come out this Christmas? Maybe before or in between the Railjack updates. As I said, it's going to be like a 3-parter.
My belief is that because they announced at TennoCon that the new war was coming Christmas this year, they have, they have really held themselves, towards doing that. I think if it was a case of getting New War out this Christmas or getting Railjack out this Christmas, I think they would actually commit to getting New War out. I think they would take resources from Railjack and make sure New War's coming out. Not only that, but we've had Steve. Sorry, I don't I don't know what the heck is up with my throat.
Just
We've
warming
had
up for the
Steve,
talk today.
evidently. We've had Steve push multiple tweets today alone, or I think it was yesterday, highlighting different elements of the new war. So that's cool. But the thing is, DE don't tell you much about the new war, about the sacrifice, about they never highlight this stuff because it's like showing half the movie before the movie's even out yet.
Yeah, it's tough when it comes to lore updates. You can't really show much, and I wouldn't really want to see much. I've been forgetting about the confirmation during TennoCon that it was going to be this Christmas. That's good news. That makes me happy because I was pretty afraid when I saw the Devstream when they talked about the upcoming plans, the upcoming schedule, and they talked about, well, we can't give you any dates. We can't give you any trajectory of what might happen when. But the only thing we can tell you is that there will be towards the end of this month where there's going to be a mainline update, which most of the time means like an update previous to a big update. And then we're going to have Railjack in 3 parts. And then if I look back at what we've had with Fortuna, where one part came out in November, the second week of November, I think it was. And then the second part came out like December, January. I'm not quite sure when that was. Like, there's going to be like a month or 2 in between each of these parts. Like, there's going to be some time in between that. And let's say that will take them 3 times 2 months, about 6 months between all these parts coming out. Then we're going to have like a really short time for like the new war, if that was coming afterwards, to release, and then TennoCon to be there. So I'm really glad to hear, and I hope that you're right, that new war comes out during Christmas. Maybe it's the second part of the update, or if it's separate, that at least we have that. Because I feel, as we've talked about before on previous FrameCast, we've talked about that, well, we've been promised a lot in dev streams, and it doesn't always deliver very fastly. And so there's a bigger time frame between when they announce things and when things come into the game, and especially this year has felt a bit shallow. Or is that just me?
What? Sorry, was that the last dev stream felt a bit shallow?
Well, just in general, the content of this year, the pace that we've been going. I know that they're building up to greater things, but we've only had the rope loaded so far, which was great content and was a great rework of the tile set. But I feel that if we're coming up towards November, it's been a really long time for my feel to my feeling that like we haven't had the big content drop or like a
Okay.
big thing happening.
I wanna do something that we swore we would never do
Look up
after the
statistics.
no, not look statistics, look up the patches.
All right.
Since um I want to look at patches since this year, so just this year. So 2019. And I don't want to go into too much detail. I just want to say, like, do you think, okay, so the Jovian Concord, no, that can't be right. We got to go further back than this. Hold on. Are you genuinely telling me? Expand all.
Was
When was
Buried
update?
Depths this
Oh, right, okay.
year? That might have
Hmm?
been. Was Buried Depths this year?
Buried Depths. Which one was Buried Depths?
That was the Blue Spider that came out, and fire patches on.
Yes, it was. It was February, March, because that's when we did the 24-hour thing, and it came out literally a few days before we did the 24-hour thing, and it was a
All right.
godsend.
Yeah.
So right. So let's have a look. January hot fixes. Don't want to go into those. No one cares. What's 24.3? 24.3 is Nightwave. Do you consider Nightwave a major update?
I don't necessarily. I think it's a
Okay.
good quality of life.
Okay. 24.4, March 8th. That was Buried Debts.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. 24.5 is Deck 12. Right. That was March 14th. So it came out a week later. Primes, do we care about, sorry. So first off, hold on, sorry.
Yeah.
Buried Debts and Deck 12, right? Are they major content?
I think that together they made Fortuna Part 2, which, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
I kind of forgot that they were this year, so that's actually pretty good.
Okay.
I feel that if we're looking over the updates that have come, like there are things which I didn't think were this year. I do not think you were hinting at Prime Access. I don't think Prime Access are necessarily major content drops, but I don't know. The reason that I bring up the question of it being too ambitious is that I've been feeling, and I'm trying to like see if we can figure this out during this podcast, whether it's right. But my feeling is that over the last few years, I've been feeling as though the trend, the hype, the traction, that's the right word, the traction around Warframe has been slowly decreasing. Not in the sense that it's been doing bad, because seriously, like, the content is better than it's ever been before. There's been more content than there's ever been before. There's been more players to Warframe than there's ever been before. The quality has probably been better than it's ever been before. But I feel that 2-3 years ago, we had a place where a lot of people were always in the game and a lot of things were always happening, because there were somewhat frequent updates, which have declined a little bit to have bigger updates come out. But at the same time, you had people that started the game and were further advanced in the game that were just being around, playing with fashion, hanging around. There were a lot of people creating content around it. A lot of things were happening. And now it seems as though a lot of people have gotten a bit tired of the game. And that might just be my own perspective from being like 6 years on within the game. And we're kind of on this waiting list where we're like, oh, well, let's wait for the update. And we come back once in a while when the next big update is going to hit.
Well, humor me for a moment, because I literally just want to burn through these updates real quick to see whether or not you think they are a major update or if they're just, part of the course. So far, you've only said Fortuna Part 2, right?
Yeah.
Okay. The Plains of Eidolon remaster.
I think that's a quality of life fix. So
that's
it's
no.
It's good, but it's not that there would be like a drop.
Don't worry, you don't need to expand on it. 24.7 we're skipping because it's just an Atlas skin. 24.8 arbitrations iteration change 1.
Again, I feel quality of life change. These are good changes, not big content drops.
25. So we're going straight to 25 now. Which, scrolling down, Concord.
Jove Concord, I think it's All right. We talked about this, I think, 3 FrameCasts ago, a little while ago, where we said that because the sacrifice wasn't really that big aside from the lore, we could give it a pass, but we barely gave the sacrifice a pass because
Okay.
it was part of the trilogy. So I think it's a
Mm,
decent update. I don't think it's one where, like, if we compare it to something like what we've had with the Second Dream, the War Within, what we've had with Plains of Eidolon or Fortuna, these are updates where maybe a lot of content comes into the game and it's like heavily being advertised, and we're like the whole community jumps in on it, and it's yeah,
okay. I'm skipping 25.1,
mm-hmm,
25.2 Wukong rework,
a quality of life change.
25.3 Wukong Prime.
Prime, I don't count.
Okay, 25.4 Tenor reinforcements.
That's 10 reinforcements. That's also yeah.
Mm, okay, right. 25.5 Wukong Deluxe.
No, it's also not. I think that
Uh,
the next big one would be the Gauss drop, and I think that the Gauss drop was nice, but did it really add that much complexity to it? I was really surprised that they changed the name of the update and they added in like a letter at the start, because I didn't feel it was big enough for that. But how do you feel? How do you feel about the Gauss update? Because we've been going over. I do have to concede that Fortuna 2 was something which I didn't remember being this year, but it was.
okay, so we've gone over the updates.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'll address your question first. The Gauss is there. I mean, I kind of wish that the Lavarian was more of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of don't mind the expansion to the disruption game mode, but I wasn't massively impressed. I mean, it's like it's just still there. It's just nothing new and amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, look, we have Lua lenses now, and we have Universal Syndicate medallions. Yeah. Um, but the one that I actually feel is a major content update that you don't think is actually the Jovian Concord. I don't think that Fortuna Part 2 is even a major content update. But ignoring that, as we have too rightly said, we both feel that there has only been one, though they differ, we
Mm-hmm.
only feel that one update this year was a major release, which has its negative pressure on any additional stuff coming out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we're looking at the new war and the Railjack, the Empyrean, that has taken so long to make its way into the game that maybe this has been a little too much for DE to bite off more than they can chew. That's basically what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Yeah. So like my main worry is not necessarily, especially in the topic of today, is not that is it bad that there is like long content droughts? Is it bad? Like, is there content droughts? Like, my main worry is that with the way that things are being announced now, like some key things that stood out during the Devstream to me were, well, we're working really hard and taking a long time to implement systems so that updates in the future will be better, and Railjack will ensure that going forward we will have a better game. And I remember I had to think back of like Plains of Eidolon when they were taking a long time as well, and Fortuna, and they were saying the same thing, where they were saying, well, we're taking a long time because we're changing systems, so things will be better along the way. And I'm like, well, that's fine, but I don't know. Like you said it before, why would it be different this time? And I'd like to believe them. However, what I'm currently seeing in the game is that before we would have some bigger updates, and but they would be a little bit more frequent. But in the meantime, we would have very interchangeable, interesting events, and I feel that a lot of Plague Star goals and um, the other like Fortuna fractures are very reappearing and very the samey. And because of that, I feel that a lot of people are that are playing Warframe are either the veterans, or like I don't want to say veterans, but people that have made it pretty much very far into the game, that make it there and then sit around and wait. And then like I think that like the content creators are a good reflection of this, where um, a lot of people will come up in Twitch or YouTube, make a lot of content around Warframe until they get towards the point where they covered everything, and then move on and wait until the next thing drops, and then they'll jump back on it, and then they'll jump away from it. And I think that symbolizes also what a lot of veterans will be doing, or a lot of experienced players will be doing. Whereas before, I felt that they stuck around more, and now the newer players that come in will have a great time because, as I said, the game is still a lot of fun. There's still a lot of great content to the game, and it's better than it has ever been. Like, let me put that forward. Like, I don't want to say that back in the day it was better because frick no, we now have open worlds. We didn't have that in update 1, but I feel that it's a community of people that are waiting and people that are going through the motions to then join that group that is waiting, instead of this universe of people that are just enjoying the game altogether, which I felt was more so back in the day. And then when they're talking on Devstream about things which are coming up um, in the future, where they don't have really specific dates and where they don't have anything which we might know will come this week or next week or whenever, we don't know, then I feel like they're focused too much on the future, and we're kind of stuck here in the present, where it's like, well, let's hope that this future where they're talking about is coming up soon, because yeah, yeah. But I don't know whether that's just something that I'm experiencing or whether that's something that you share as well or have seen other people share too.
It's really interesting because Salad D posted out earlier today that, Warframe's been going on for quite some time now.
Mm-hmm.
Could we not see some additions or improvements to what's the name of the dang thing? To the animations, the enemies, which I can fully appreciate. But at the same time, how much resources does it take to actually change the animations? Are we looking at months or years worth of work to make Grenier jog, make
Mm-hmm.
rollers hop, make mowers crouch? How much time are we looking at?
Mm-hmm.
And can the game survive a huge drop in resource? I assume it's going to be a huge drop in resources to actually get something like that done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Go ahead.
so when you actually have a update which is months, if not years, in the making, how can you justify delaying such a huge update by taking resources away?
Mm-hmm.
you know so it's very difficult because I think DE are hugely, this is just me playing devil's advocate, this is me me assuming that they are trying to push the envelope further now to actually give their veterans more to do, because I think right now early game Warframe is perfectly fine. Getting through the first 100, 200, 500, however many hundreds of hours. Actually, if you're listening to us, please put in the chat or comment section of the video how many hours you've actually played, because we'd be interested to know. And I count Warframe's playtime, not Steam or anything like that. But I'd be interested to know how much of an addition the Empyrean update and the New War will bring to Warframe
Mm-hmm.
to actually give veterans and new players alike something to do.
Mm-hmm. No, I share the same concern. I think Sakimus puts it really well. I do like the idea that they're trying to one up themselves and trying to do better. And like I want to make sure that the focus of this podcast, this discussion today, is not necessarily on the way they do their update schedule, because I'd be fine. Well, for the sake of this discussion, I'd be fine if they were to update only once a year with a massive update. As long as the game felt as though it was alive and we kept, like, I'm not saying it's dead, but like, if it felt more alive and it wasn't a waiting train that we feel, but that we seem to be on. And what I think Sekim has pointed out very rightly is that with the second dream, Warframe had a really great response. If you don't remember the second dream was one of the very first cinematic quests within Warframe. Before that, Warframe was this fun space ninja game where you play missions, and there was a bit of lore, but it wasn't really clear. And then this cinematic quest comes around. It's like this 1 hour long, or 20-minute long if you speedrun it, 1 hour long cinematic quest where we learn a lot. Like, we learn a whole damn lot. If you play Warframe for the first time, go to the second dream, go do that, and then come back and let us know what you feel about Warframe. But it was something that moved people to tears, and it was something that had never been seen before, and people were just amazed. And I think that Sakimus points out very rightly that with also the mechanics that were in it, there were also new mechanics that came with the second dream, that they've been trying to like get that same reaction that the second dream had. I think the War Within tried that. I don't know how successful they were because it was like a second thing. Then they went into the open worlds, and that was alright. And now they're trying it with Railjack, but it's at some point, like, I'm not quite sure whether we will ever be able to have a second dream moment like we had that before again, and whether it is worth trying to chase that in, and maybe to the detriment of the current game.
So I want to ask a poll.
Mm-hmm.
Which cinematic quest is the best? The Sacrifice, The War Within, and Second Dream, The War Within, and The Sacrifice. Yeah, make sure you get it in order, because otherwise there could be people like, oh, it was the first one. We put it in the wrong order. So what was I going to say? I personally think The War Within was better than The Sacrifice. They put in a lot of effort with War Within. The Sacrifice was sort of like the test bed. How successful was it going to be?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that you're right. The second dream, I may be getting the words wrong here. The second dream was a brilliant test bed to see whether or not cinematic quests could work within Warframe, and it showed yes, they could.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the War Within was them one-upping themselves, making it so that it was, what they really wanted the second dream to fully be, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is that it's a lot of work to produce those, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
not a 5-second job. I'd love to know from what's it called DE side of things, how long does it take for them to produce the script for a cinematic quest?
Yeah.
Right? How long does it take for the voice actors to get the lines right for the cinematic quest? I always envision that a voice actor, they go into the booth, the recording booth, they read the lines once, they send them off to DE, and that's it. But I'm sure DE is going to have backwards and forwards. Like, ooh, could you elongate this a bit more? Could you do this? Could you do that? So on and so forth.
So,
How long did? Yeah,
how is it in your experience? Because you haven't been making cinematic quests, but you have been making Faulty Frame Squad and Tactical
Tactical
Terror
Terror
League.
League. Yeah.
How long of a time do you spend with the voice actors? Do they just read this one line, or do you have them like do multiple takes? What's your experience with that? Because I think, even though it's not a one-to-one, I think it's a bit similar where you're trying to create this cinematic story within the game that we're having with voice actors, with lines, with a script.
So I spent months with various different people, Loz
Mm-hmm.
included, making the scripts for the first season, the first season of 40 Frame Squad, which is still in the production if I ever find the time. But the interesting thing is that some people can read their lines spot on perfect. They can be some of the best well-spoken lines I have ever heard.
Mhm.
Sometimes I get lines and I'm like, no, you're saying it wrong. Um, oh, like, and I ask them, can you read out the line again? Just, calm down. You are scared. You are concerned. I during the time of recording episode 3 of season 1,
Mhm.
there was a huge break because I went through a state of depression because my job was horrible,
Mhm.
and I had someone read their lines out, and their lines were quite weak. And after going away, doing improv and things, which really turned my life around, I was so happy. I learned to be able to guide people better in their presentation of their dialogue. And one of the best performances, and she has been, I've had people turn to me and say, like, the performance of Lilium, right, in
Mhm.
episode 3 is one of the best. And initially, her initial recordings was one of the worst, right?
Mhm.
So sometimes it can go backwards and forwards. Other times I get lines from people like Vox or Crash Omnis. Oh my god, Crash. Like, the lines he gives me are just, diamonds, just pure diamonds the entire way. So yeah.
Because I can definitely imagine these things being a tough thing. I have it myself. I've done some scripted stuff where I mean I still do scripted videos sometimes where like you need to have takes because sometimes you just don't get it right. But yeah, I'd be really curious about the back end of that as well. As we saw from the poll, the War Within won with a stunning lead. I can see the War Within being the better quest. I think that the sacrifice really didn't have a lot of content with it, and it was alright. But to me, even though I really enjoyed it, I think it places third for me, and I felt as though the War Within got a lot of criticism for being late. And if you take a look at it now without having the extra context of like when it released and when it came out of development, like how long people waited for it and how long people knew about it, I think that yeah, the War Within might be a little better. Though I really really appreciate the second dream with the plot twist, which is amazing. The what is it? The emotional attachment to it, the Stoker appearing. I want to know more about the Stoker. Just the characters interacting, entering in a world which you had no clue of, and then having this entirely new game system appearing. And as Sakuma says, I'm kind of surprised the War Within 1 2 with like double the votes of the second dream.
I I think that it's not that DE wants to make a Hail Mary pass. I don't think that they're trying to go from the Eiffel Tower to the International Space Station. I don't think
Mm-hmm.
they're trying to, just make the next best thing. I personally think that they are making the thing that is right for Warframe, right? What they think is the thing that will make them happy, right? Because if you're not happy making your own content, then you're not going to be happy doing it, period. I know you've
Yeah,
heard me say
yeah.
this a lot. I'm
Well,
sorry.
do I know? Like, oh no, no, it's not like we've talked about that today. But no. So I think it's correct for them to do where they see the game to go in the best direction. The one thing that I'm worried about is I don't know. I have an example, but I don't know whether I want to bring it up. But let's say that I was talking with Sakamus today about a lot of things, but also about creating content, about the quality of my videos, because I have a lot of value. I attach a lot of value to making good quality videos, and as long as I don't get to where I want to be, I fit like there's probably something wrong with my video, so I gotta make them better. And as a result, I will spend a lot of time on keyframing things or learning new edits and things like that. But at the end of the day, I think Sakuma said one thing which he was pretty right on, is that the quality of the videos is pretty alright. It's pretty decent. It's good enough, but you can make a cinematic movie and it doesn't necessarily have to go about the quality. Like, it's also about more things. It's also about like keeping people engaged. It's also about like having the content in there that people want to watch. And I could go out and, with where I am right now, I could go out and learn entirely new things, like dive deeper into After Effects, learn Cinema 4D, learn like my skills with Blender. But if I were to take these months off, then and there would not be content on the channel, then maybe my production would be better and I would be better suited for the future because I would have new skills. But at the same time, I could be doing very detrimental work towards my channel because I'm not uploading something. Sometimes having something is better than having nothing. So that is the thing that I'm a little bit afraid of with Warframe. Is I think they're efficient. Like, it's their product. They should do with it what they want. They should do with it what they're happy with. However, I think we recently talked about how with 10 o'clock, you guys were always talking about current topics on Warframe, as we're trying to do sometimes as well, like today. But it's getting harder because there's not a lot of new current things coming around as much as they used to back before. So isn't that like, I don't know, like I'm understand, like I understand where you're coming from with like they should do what they want to do, but I'm feeling that where they had, it's just,
So
yeah, go ahead.
their belief is
Mm-hmm.
that the payoff for the new war, for what's the name of the Empyrean,
Mm-hmm.
that will lead to a better end product. It will lead to a reward that they've all the effort is worth.
Mm-hmm.
And I can appreciate that. If Warframe doesn't make them any money, then they will shut down Warframe and they'll make something else.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that there is really enough resources in the world for DE to make their stuff fast enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some things will just take time, no matter
Mm-hmm.
what. And sometimes you can't spread the workload any thinner to get it out any faster.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
But is there something that they could do where, because I get it, content takes time to make, but at the same time, there are different strategies to also make sure that you're keenly aware on the present, or like more focused on the present. Like, I think that they're trying to do this with the reoccurring events, which are, if I'm not mistaken, the ghouls on the plains, the plague store that comes around once in a while, and then the fire patches on Fortuna. I feel that those events, like the idea, the intention with those events are pretty alright, but I don't think that they are the most interesting events we've had in Warframe's history. I think there are way cooler events that I would love to see back. And then, even if you might say that, well, that's because you're having them in repetition now, and even if you would have these previous events on repetition, you would get really bored of them. I'm like, at least I would like to see them within that rotation. So I'm seeing the fire patches on Fortuna way less than I'm seeing it right now, because it feels as though it's been like every 2 weeks. So yeah, there we go again. Ghouls are back. Oh, there we go again. Fire patches are back. It's like it just feels like it's an automatic rotation, and it doesn't feel, woo, let's go. If that makes sense.
I get where you're coming from, and I think part of the concern is for those of you who have played World of Warcraft,
Mm-hmm.
when they introduced, I think it was when they introduced the yearly content. Sorry, not the yearly content. The achievement system at the end of the Burning Crusade. They added in yearly events, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe the yearly events came beforehand. No, I think the yearly. It doesn't matter. So there are yearly events where you have the Midsummer Festival, you have Winter Veil, you have Hallows End, you have all these different events that happened the same time of year every year, right? But once you've done the event, what is the value of doing it again,
Mm-hmm.
right? You've got all the stuff, so why would you bother doing it again? And the answer to that is they add new content to it. You're still fighting the Headless Horseman, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this time the Headless Horseman can drop a pumpkin companion, right? This time the Headless Horseman allows you to earn a title. This time the Headless Horseman allows you to get a flaming sword skin for your weapons. They
Mm-hmm.
keep on adding new stuff to it, but Warframe doesn't have that,
Mm-hmm.
right? Apart from with the likes of the Halloween event, I would love to see them have more events like a Warframe themed. I'd like to have a proper Warframe themed Halloween event, a proper Warframe themed Christmas event. You wouldn't call it Christmas, you wouldn't call it Halloween, you would call it oh
Tenenbaum.
gosh. No. Yeah, I wasn't going to go Tenenbaum. I was thinking like Halloween one. You could call it the Harrowing, right, or something like the the shackles of Harrow, or
Mm-hmm.
but basically the veiled wall, whatever. It doesn't matter. The whole point is that it's something that happens on a yearly basis,
Mm-hmm.
and they put new things in. They could put more mods in it, right?
Mm-hmm.
They could put a gun in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
They could put just a skin on there, right? They
Mm-hmm.
could put all sorts of stuff on there. And it's just to keep people coming back to do the little thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I'm not saying that that's nearly enough, but it is something small to tide someone over with. What were you
Yeah.
going to say?
Yeah, like I think that you're really right in that like having these little variations would make a big difference. I saw someone say in the chat that they said, well, it's really nice that these Fermia fractures or the ghouls are there for new players that need to do them. If it's nice that they're here like every 2 weeks. And to which I said, like, I can understand that. But to me, it feels like it's an automated system, which it is, obviously. But still, it feels much more like they're not events, they're just things that happen on a standard schedule. And like that's something which I don't think is desirable in games, in the sense of you want to feel like the universe is alive and things are happening. It's like the ghouls pop up. It's like the Fermia fractures are here. It's like it's a bit weird if that just happens like every 2 weeks. Like, oh yeah, oh they're gone now, but I'm gonna set my timer. They'll be back again in 2 weeks in the exact same fashion. And that's not necessarily to argue the point of, what is it, the immersion, but more as just the feeling of the game. It just feels like things are just on repeat regardless. And then if you would spice it up with different events in there, maybe it would take longer for you to reach the what is it, the Fermia fractures, which you need to do as a new player. But in the meantime, you would have a lot more different things going on. This might feel like a brand new thing that pops up. So in order to not necessarily go down the route of what is it, of whether we need to have big content releases, because I really want to like make the difference between, we talked about the Devstream overhyping in I think episode 1 or 2, where we were talking around does Warframe overhype things in Devstreams, especially when it comes to the big updates, and we looked at the update schedule and stuff like that. I don't necessarily want to argue around the big updates, because I think that it's a great thing for Warframe potentially to do these big updates and carry the game on to where they want it to be. However, I think that it's more in the present right now, which is being left out because they're really being really ambitious. Would that mean that maybe a solution would delay a Railjack maybe even more? Maybe. But if that means that the game feels more alive now and that it doesn't turn into the waiting game that it is now, because mind you, we have been waiting throughout Warframe, we've been waiting throughout every single game like Warframe forever, because it's always like waiting till the next thing that comes out. But I felt that before it was a lot more alive. People were still sticking in the game instead of it feeling like a waiting game. So that's a very personal experience. Though I feel it being resonated around me within the Warframe community a lot more. So I want to know from you, Drew, and also the people that are watching, if you're watching a dev stream, because this is something that's changed a lot for me ever since over the last few years. If you're watching a dev stream, what is the earliest or average time which you expect something to be out? So if they show something on a dev stream, when do you expect something to be out? So you're watching a dev stream, they show you something, we're taking just the average something. If you're seeing something, when do you think like, oh yeah, will that be out like tomorrow? Will that be out in 2 weeks' time? Will that be out next week? How do you feel? Like, what do you feel when you're watching a dev stream? When does something come out? Because I think that that's something key to the way that I feel about it.
I think it's really important for the audience to answer this because personally, I stopped. I seriously stopped trying to estimate when something would come out, because Cora is a brilliant example. Cora was announced and then she didn't come out for like, I think 6, 9, maybe even 12 months after her announcement. It took them forever to get her out because her entire kit was heavily based on what's the name of the thing? The damage 2.5. But it never happened. Then, we have things like Melee 3.0, which took, I'm sure, over a year to come out. But we have some stuff which is things like arbitrations, which I love. I'm pretty sure the entire audience know I love arbitrations, right? And that just came out of left field. It's just like, whoa, where the hell did this come from? Not arbitration. Sorry, ESO. That's what I meant. I think you all knew what I meant.
I thought you were being sarcastic about the arbitration. I was like, oh, you love the aura forma, don't you?
I'm pretty sure there's also arbitrations which also came left field. But it's just like, it just came out of nowhere. And though I appreciate that DE spent absolutely ages trying to put this stuff together, it just, like, Grendel, right? Grendel seems to have been quite quick, right, compared to most, right? So yeah, I think that a lot of so I just saw Nazareth say ESO came out of nowhere because it was their scrapped idea for the Kingpin system. It wasn't. It wasn't. I can guarantee you that. Like, I know things, NDA. So
I can speculate because I don't have the knowledge that Xeno has, but as far as I can tell, I think that the Q-value system is the derivative of the Kingpin system, and they were once talking about like a raid system, not in the sense of raid, or like I think the raid is not raid, it's like there's another term where they said you go into the void and you go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. Dungeon system, that was it. They were talking about dungeon system, and I think that ESO came out of that because it was like you change places every time. But let's go take a look at what the people said. I see a year, a month and a half, a month. So I think that the most common ones are like a month to 2 months and then a year. So it's like big content about a year and the rest like a month or two. So to me, when I started watching the dev stream, my expectation for when it was coming out, because we had a dev stream every 2 weeks, was either going to be within those 2 weeks to a month. So I will admit we had a quicker update schedule, but like everything that was shown in the dev stream, because we had every 2 weeks a dev stream, my expectation when I saw something is like that's coming out within the next 2 weeks to a month. So either it's like they're showing off the final thing before release, or they're prepping us, and then with the next dev stream we're going to get more information, and then it's going to be prepped for release. So it felt as though like I was watching a dev stream which is like Warframe's update stream where they tell you about what's coming up. And I was watching that and I was like, okay, this is coming up. I can get a little bit excited about that. And I know what's happening. Now I'm watching it and I'm looking at the Ember rework, the other rework, Fuban rework. I'm looking at the things that they're talking about when it concerns to Railjack, the things they're talking about concerning Melee, and I'm like, well, that's pretty nice, but I don't know when it's coming out. And I like the longer the time there is between like when they announce something and when it's coming out, the bigger difference there will be. Take Garuda, for example. Her fourth ability that was shown off on the Devstream never made it in the game. So it becomes a far less reliable source of information for me, where I will have this site with Mika, who said in the chat that, hey, I'm not watching with the Devstream anymore. I'm not keeping up with the Warframe news anymore because the only thing it will do is like overhype me. And I just want to wait until it's in the game. That's the way I stand in it now, because if I watch your Devstream, I'm like, well, that's pretty neat if it wasn't the game. But I just my sense of like, for when I'm seeing something, I have no idea when it's gonna come around. And if I have no idea when it's gonna come around, I'm like, yeah, that looks cool, I guess. And I think that that's a key thing for me, or one of the key things for me, where it feels as though like, oh, you're showing us what could be, but I don't know whether that might be.
It's really interesting you say this because we ended up touching on this the dev stream during 10 o'clock,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I have a full list of comprehensive notes of all the stuff that they said that they were going to change and things. And in all honesty, things like the Ember rework and the Valban rework, I was actually kind of interested in. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think any one thing I was excited for, because I think like I have, so this is like excitement. I don't know if you can actually see
Yeah,
my
you're
word.
good.
Yeah. So this is excitement, and this is where I am. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like I'm at a moderate yes. That will happen at some point. Right? And you know that is just where my like how far my excitement can ever get. You know, it can't ever go too high.
How was that before? Like, was it always that way, or has it changed over time? And if so,
No,
when?
it's certainly changed over time. Like, I don't know what the. Oh, I think it was 2017
Mm-hmm.
with the War Within. Was that 2017?
Yeah, no, 2017 was Plains of Eidolon. 2017 TennoCon, Plains of Eidolon was announced. 2017 October, Plains of Eidolon released, and War Within was in
Right. So
2016.
2016.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So 2016, that year was what taught me not to get overly enthusiastic from announcements on Warframe.
Mm-hmm.
You
Because of
know,
the long wait of the War Within.
yeah, it's just like, oh yeah, it'll be next month, it'll be next month,
Mm-hmm.
it'll be next month. It's coming soon. It's like it's on the horizon.
So yeah,
It's on the moon.
for those that aren't aware of the situation, back in 2016 they announced the follow-up of the, actually they, I think in 2015 already, after the second Dream was released, they announced the follow-up, which is going to be the War Within.
It was
And
January
it was
2016.
going to be like in July the War Within would start, and then they said it's going to be free, it's going to be a free parter, and the first part would release like on the 1st of July or something, and then like the War Within released actually in November, which was a really long wait time. I see Rollins here in chat who says excitement is the path of disappointment. I do believe in that in some point. That's why I don't fully support the hype. We talked about like this Warframe overhype before, and I think it's a bad thing to be too excited about something, because yeah, you'll most likely be disappointed at some point. However, I do also think that there is something good in excitement. Like if you have your bar where you set, I'm not all like, you know, I'm not all the way at the top anymore. I'm like at the lower third now. You shouldn't be always at the top, because you're gonna be in for disappointment then. But if everyone were just to like sit back and be like, do whatever. We'll see when it comes around. You know, I'm just expecting absolutely nothing. Just like come around. Yeah, sure. Well, whatever you're doing. Oh my god, an update! It's like, I don't think that that's really an ideal situation where we want to be in either. You want to have at least some sort of like general enthusiasm for the game. It's like, oh, hey, I'm seeing this. I'm like, oh my god, they're doing this. That's actually pretty good. You know, I like that. I like that. I'm like, oh, you know, the enthusiasm you have for like when they announce like an open world. It's like it shouldn't get into theorizing about, oh, they're gonna have like cars driving around because they showed that off on the Devstream and we still haven't seen it in the game. But, oh, they're gonna have this thing and they're gonna have this thing. It's like, well, let's just don't go there, but just being like, oh hell yeah, you know, that sounds pretty cool. I can't wait to play it. You know, that would be pretty awesome because I feel that I had that before, and like slowly but surely I've been losing that, where it's like I would sit and watch dev streams and be like, oh my god, that spider looks pretty cool. Hell yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. Oh my god, actually, like this Warframe, these abilities can actually work pretty well. I can't wait to try these out. To where it's like, well, I mean, like right now I'm like the Ember rework and the Fuma rework work fine, I think, but will they be like that exactly in the game? I don't know. When will they come in the game? I don't know. So I'm like, yeah, looks cool, but gonna have to see it in the game first. And I think that a general enthusiasm about something which is going on, just being like, oh yeah, we're pretty up for it, is something that like is very beneficial to a game to have, which I've been feeling less and less.
So with I personally needed the dev stream because
Mm-hmm.
as you two rightly know, I've been contemplating doing another podcast on other things like, just gaming in general or Destiny 2 or, loads of different things because in all honesty, I have I am worried that Warframe ain't going nowhere. And I didn't realize that I needed my fortnightly Scott appearance to actually sate my developer urges. That
Mm-hmm.
sounds gross. Anyway, but the point is just being able to hear that the stuff that they're working on is enough for me to have the belief that they are still working on it. The fact that we didn't have a dev stream all of September,
Mm-hmm.
we didn't have a dev stream for the second half of August. Since TennoCon back in July, we've had 3 dev streams,
Mm-hmm.
right? Normally by now we would have had 12.
Mm-hmm.
Am I no, am I
Yeah,
doing that right?
they would
No,
have
I'm
like one
doing
every 2 weeks.
one every 2 weeks. So we would have had 6. And we've only had 3.
Yep.
Right. And that is like disappointing to me.
Mm-hmm. How so? So actually, yeah. How so? Like how is less dev streams disappointing?
In all honesty, a lot of it revolves around how World of Warcraft has gone, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there are some Blizzard games that I absolutely love and adore,
Mm-hmm.
and Blizzard have become this stereotypical monster, right? Of hey, let's get we will tell the consumers what they want as a product, right?
Mm-hmm.
When Overwatch didn't actually grow, I was disappointed. When Heroes of the Storm has only released 2 heroes this year, I've been disappointed. When it's just like Activision are seriously out to grab as much money out of a person's wallet as physically possible. They
Mm-hmm.
released a 15th anniversary collector's edition of the game without the game.
Oh yeah, I've heard about that. That is insane. It's an addition, not an edition, but an addition.
You know, it's insane. Like, so when we don't have that transparency,
Mhm.
from DE. I'm not saying that they will definitely do this, but when we don't have it, it makes me worried that we are leading down the path of they're going to do this sort of stuff again. Sorry, that they're going to turn into a blizzard.
Well, I can actually, now that you're bringing up World of Warcraft, I think that is one of my concerns where you're actually putting your finger on. I haven't played World of Warcraft, so I can't comment on that too much. However, the thing that I feel is that World of Warcraft is something which has come up, and mind you, this is someone who hasn't been attached to World of Warcraft, so don't you get angry here.
Okay.
As far as I can see, I mean, also the audiences at home, if you're a World of Warcraft fan, I don't mean to insult you, but maybe I might. But if I look at World of Warcraft as something that came up like pretty good, like there was a lot of steam around it, and now it's something that's just like it's around, it's always been around, and you play it or you don't. It's there, and sometimes things happen, sometimes don't. It's just one of those things it's kind of there. It doesn't really feel like there's like a lot of traction around in like just the general media or the general like reality that I see, that I perceive, where it's like, oh my god, World of Warcraft did this, and it's wow. Which I think Warframe has had, like, it didn't have a very good start, but then it came through and it was like you were starting to see Warframe more and more and more, and it was like, oh, like there was a trend around it. Like there was like sometimes it would just pop up and like people would talk about it, and now it's like I feel that Warframe is becoming more and more one of those things that's, I mean, it's kind of there. It's a red, like it's there, and like you can play it. Like you can play it when something new comes out, and then you just leave it alone. And like it's fine if you want to leave it alone, but like I think that for the game itself, it's not desirable if the standard of the game is like, we'll leave it alone until it updates, and then we jump into it, and then we jump out of it. Because then, like, if you're there as a new player, then there's just like people that are climbing up the ladder until they reach like the most that they can do in the game. They're like, all right, well, let me just wait around. And that's something that I'm a little bit worried about. And I think that partly I'm not too upset that there's less dev streams, because I feel that dev streams, if they don't have anything to say, it's better to not speak, because otherwise they might like overhype things. Or as we saw with Fortuna, they were like showing off all of Fortuna already before like Fortuna was out. But then again, I can also understand where you're coming from, because like having dev streams every 2 weeks was something to say that if they had like good things to say within the dev stream, it meant that every 2 weeks there was something to talk about in Warframe, because Warframe talks about their own game in development every 2 weeks, because every 2 weeks had something to say. And now it's like, well, we don't really have anything to say. We'll talk about that later, because there's nothing really like to talk about now. And like that's something that, yeah, I can share your concern with.
I so let's go back to the original question.
Mm-hmm.
Do I think that is Warframe getting too ambitious for its own sake?
Mm-hmm.
I think that is a very difficult question to answer. I think that DE do need to address some issues like the repetition of the grind. They need to find ways of resolving that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are they getting to, um, you know, can they keep going with just producing the same type of content? No, not in the slightest. Is Railjack meant to be the solution to this? I think it is. Is it going to work? I don't know. Right. I think open worlds was originally meant to be the solution to keeping long-term players going, but I think it failed. I think it
Mm-hmm.
works perfectly as a way to bring players back, sort of like an expansion to a game,
Mm-hmm.
World of Warcraft. But I think that the grand scheme of things, the open world stuff has only improved the longevity of the game for a few months,
Mm-hmm.
and then it fizzles back out, right?
Yeah.
I'm really hoping that the new tile set that is coming with the new war is going to be something to keep players going for a long time. And I personally do prefer the procedurally generated environments than the open world stuff,
Mm-hmm.
right? But we have no true understanding of how Railjack is going to be implemented. DE does, but for us, I think it's going to be like, I don't get it. Because we don't know the full scope of what can the Railjack do, right?
Mm-hmm.
How much is Arcwing going to be involved? Is Arcwing going to be subjugated to just a form of transportation? How much is Arcwing going to get a rework? Things like this. Do I think Warframe is too ambitious for its sake? No, because I think that if they do not push now, then Warframe could potentially fizzle and die out in the
Mm-hmm.
next couple of years.
I can understand that. I think one of the things that you mentioned was the open worlds was supposed to be like a solution. And I think that that's one of the things that's got me skeptical about Railjack, because the things that they said around open worlds and making that happen were some of the things that they also said around open worlds. Like they're also saying around Railjack, like they're saying the same things. As like, well, this is something completely different from what you've done before. This is an entirely new segment of Warframe that we're building. We're putting a lot of development time in, but because of that, like updates will be better, content will be better, like, and I don't think that Railjack will be the solution. I don't think that Warframe knows what Railjack exactly will be. In the sense of, I think that they know what it is in like the thing that they're releasing, but I don't think that they know the way that will be received and the way that will play a part within Warframe. As an example of that, I think that if we take a look at Arcwing, I think Arcwing was supposed to be, when it released in 2015, this massive update to the game, which will expand it into like another dimension other than we've ever seen before. And then the community didn't really latch onto it because it wasn't the greatest. Like, some people liked it, but most people didn't really like it. And I think that if people really enjoyed Arcwing at the time, maybe we would have had an entirely different game than we have right now, because people would have adopted it way more than they did now, and then Warframe would have been way more on that. So I think that Railjack is also a guess for Warframe. And I think that, yes, they do need the big updates, but I feel that we are seeing signs of the, not the fizzling and dying out, because I don't think that Warframe is anywhere close to dying out, but just to like losing steam, where it's like, I feel that it's becoming more and more common practice for players to be around and be like, all right, I've done my quest, I've completed the solar system, I've gotten most of the things that I want. I don't necessarily want to grind on every single thing in Nightwave. I don't necessarily want to grind on for endlessly grinding on. I'll just wait until the next update comes around. They wait, then Railjack comes around, they play for like, as we saw with the open worlds, for like 2 months, and it's like, all right, yep, cool. See you when the next big thing drops. And I think that a on-off community like that, I don't know, like the best way I can compare it to is streams, because like that's something which is people here on Twitch, which are watching it live, are pretty familiar with. Well, something that I'm pretty familiar with. But as an example, when I joined the Warframe Twitch community, which like when I joined Twitch, I didn't even like, I wasn't really familiar with it, but there were a lot of streamers that were just like playing Warframe, and people that were coming up and having great success with Warframe, and like a lot of people were enjoying it. And over the recent times, a lot of people have been saying, well, hey, I've done most of the things in Warframe. I'm getting a bit tired of doing the same thing over and over again. I'm gonna go do something else, which is perfectly understandable. And you should too. If you're feeling like it's not your thing as it was anymore, go do something else, because like there are way more cooler things out there to keep you entertained. Because it's all about that you enjoy yourself. That's the most important thing. But because of that, you have like all these people that were there, and like the excitement and everything that was going on. They're just like, they're moving out. And we had like around 2017 a big influx in people that came in because Warframe came out with Planes of Eidolon. It was like a great thing. It's like people were like, oh my god, Warframe is a thing. Oh, let's jump onto it. And now it's like there's still people coming around, but it's less. And it's like it's a large part of these people that were there, and a large part of the community is now. We're gonna jump on Destiny 2 now, and we're gonna jump on Code Vein now, and we're gonna jump on this now, and when Warframe releases something, we'll be back for like a month, and then we'll go away. And that seems to be a more and more common practice than it was before, which I think maybe not right now. Maybe right now we're still fine, but it's something which I don't think we'd want to necessarily see continuing as a trend.
I think one of the biggest things to consider, like you were saying, I don't think that Warframe is on like a downward spiral. I tend to disagree because I'm looking at the Steam current players right now, and Warframe is at 40,000, which is, playing as of 6 minutes ago, 33,000. Right. And for the course of the Warframe's life, right? Looking at the last year, it's, I mean, okay, fine, today hasn't concluded, but it's at its lowest. They know that they I mean, looking at the numbers, I don't think it's been this low.
I think there like I have it up on screen as well. I think there's a couple of interesting things that I want to point out because we can all see this right here on the screen. But one of the things that I want to point out is I do feel that if we look from 2017 to now, we can see that like the lows are a little bit higher. Like they're getting higher. So like the concurrent players are higher even in downtime than they were before. Like we were at 60,000 and that was 58,000. So it's a little bit higher. Here we go to 69,000. So it's not insanely higher, but it's a bit higher, which is interesting. But one of the things that I'm noticing here is if we go to October 2017, the peak of the planes is 121,000. Then the peak of Fortuna, I think, in June is Sacrifice. The peak of June is 129,000. So is that? Yeah, that's bigger. So Planes of Island pulls in 121,000 players, which is a peak in October 2017. June 2080 Sacrifice release, there's a new record peak in 129,000 players. Then we have November of 2018, we have 131,000 concurrent players because of the Fortuna release. And then we go to March, which is, I think, Fortuna 2. We have a 115,000 peak, which is lower than even Planes of Eidolon. And then we go to a little peak here, which is like 696,000, which is in August. I feel that it's interesting to see that from the Sacrifice on, or was it? No, from Fortuna on, the peaks have been less. Whereas before the peaks would be going higher, now we see the peaks declining, which is very interesting to see. I don't know what it means, but it's interesting because I feel that that is one of the things when it comes to like the big updates, the things that I feel are big updates, they correspond with like the higher peaks, and then the things that I don't necessarily feel are big updates, I don't see the big peaks there. So, yeah.
Sorry, what you said October 2017?
Yeah, October 2017 was the Planes of Eidolon.
So where is oh gosh, the War Within?
War Within is November 2016, which had 68,000 players.
Wow.
And
that huge jump with the Plains of Eidolon. That's really impressive.
They did really well. They did really well with the marketing of the open worlds. I think that also a large part of that played with they really started to market Plains of Eidolon around Warframe around that time with like Times Square ads with the Twitch
Yeah.
drops. I think that played a huge part as well. But like seriously, the difference as you're pointing out, they pulled in double the peak for Plains of Eidolon as they did with The War Within, which is interesting. I do want to point out that it's Steam only, as Sekima says, which might be their largest platform. We don't know how many people downloaded Warframe through their standalone launcher. We downloaded it through Discord Nitro, if that's still a thing that you can do. And we have no numbers of Xbox, PS4, and Switch. It's
Yeah.
just the Steam charge. But they do give an interesting look into things. And if you're listening to this, I hope that it makes sense that well, there are 3 interesting peaks which are building up from like a significant peak with the Plains of Eidolon, and a significant peak with the
Fortuna.
Sacrifice. Sacrifice actually is June 2018, and then Fortuna a higher peak, and then the peaks go lower for March 2019, and even lower for July August 2019. So yeah.
So yeah, I think that right now Warframe is on a downward trend, and if they do not get something big and meaty out soon,
Mm-hmm.
then it's gonna be hell of a time getting back up.
Yeah. Well, it's to me, it's like the question of if I compare it to YouTube terms or video terms, should you adopt the Jontron model of making really exciting, like insane, well produced videos like once every whenever? Or should you keep things constantly going, like let's say a PewDiePie? I don't know the answer to that, and I don't think that there is a right answer to that. I do feel that we are moving more and more towards a Jontron scheme where it's a really big thing at some point. And whether that might be the right answer, I don't know. But I do feel that it is like I do like it's feelable, and maybe like I'm trying to figure out whether I would be alright, and I want to know whether you would be alright with if they would update things a little bit more frequently, maybe in like little events, like trying to make variations towards events, maybe in like small little patches that keep things interesting and keep things feeling alive, which would maybe delay Railjack by a month. But in between, there's a lot more little stuff going on, so that they can still work and put the amount of time into the development of the thing that they want to like showcase. But in the meantime, like they're pushing that back a little bit so that it doesn't feel like a waiting game. How would you feel about that?
What? Sorry, what do you mean?
So instead of like them putting everyone or like the people that like everyone that's being put on Railjack right now, which means that we're kind of like in a bit of a down spiral right now. If they would take some people and be like, all right, let's see if we can, instead of like, let's use the Jontron metaphor, instead of Jontron making like this one video once in whenever, he would make like one video once a week, which isn't the greatest thing, but just keeps you entertained. And then maybe the video comes out like a week later. The big video comes out a week later, but in the meantime, you've had like some weeks of content where normally there wouldn't be. And in Warframe, then maybe Railjack comes out a little bit later, but in the meantime, you've had a little bit more than we have right now.
So it's difficult to say because we don't really know how their structure works,
Mm-hmm.
right? At my job, we have God, I don't know how many developers we now have. Sorry, give me 2 seconds to count. Two. We have 6 back-end developers, and we have 6 front-end develop. No, yeah, I'm just gonna say 6 front-end developers.
Mm-hmm.
They turned around and basically they sold the time of one developer to work dedicated on one specific project, right? So he was a front end developer, so that's 1/6 of the front end resources has gone,
Mm-hmm.
right? We then have a project that's massively overrun. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. No, 3 developers that have been assigned to that work, right? So that we're now down 4/6 of our
Mm-hmm.
development resource. Another developer is dedicated to another project. He was brought in specifically to do that project, and he's been doing nothing but that project. So he's a write-off already. So we're down to 1/6 of our development team to do anything that is a bug, right? 1/6 to deal with all the problems of this is broken, that's broken, so on and so forth. If
Mm-hmm.
anything arises, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like, and that's like not intended. So like, it's more than likely a very similar situation where like most of the development resource is dedicated to getting a big project done because it's overdue, because it needs to get done as quickly as possible. Same thing, you know, it needs to be done as well as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a case of, okay, we could take this individual, we could take them away from, making Eon walk
Mm-hmm.
around the plains, and we could give them the opportunity to make a gun for the next 10 of reinforcements,
Mm-hmm.
right? You know, I'm pretty sure DE would turn out, well, no, they continue doing the walking animation for Eon. We need to get this out the door already.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I can understand it. It's very hard to like. Let's say that you have a group of like 10 people. You can't say
Yeah.
like, oh, we'll just put like one person on there, and that will be like they will have 10% of like other productivity there because the one person and the other will run on 90% productivity because it's not that simple of an equation.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily work like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, like I think that those are also problems for DE to solve as their own company. Like they have a far better insight to like as to what they're doing, and they're ultimately the ones to decide what they're doing, and that's not necessarily up to us. But
I think one of the big things about the dev streams is
mm-hmm.
to really remind people that this is the company they're running. They know what they're doing. They can get it done.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
they need to remind us this is the circus act that they're having to manage. They need to get it out. They need to perform it well. They and they are doing a good job, and I think that's the whole point of the dev streams, is to keep people engaged, keep the transparency up and things.
All right.
You know,
So I actually want to ask another question. Around something which has happened pretty recently.
mm-hmm.
Destiny 2 has gotten free to play. Vanilla
Right.
Destiny plus DLC 1 and DLC 1, DLC 2. That means that there are 2 quests and like additions, which expansions which you need to buy. But instead of the base game costing $60 and then every expansion costing more, you get a large part of the game for free, and then you can buy extra things.
You say
It's
large.
a
Sorry.
decent size of the game you can get for free. I mean, I considered 2 expansions. I haven't played for them yet, but it's a decent offer, way better than they did before. So I think it becomes that at that point the game becomes more comparable to Warframe. They do run different monetizations, they do run different models, but if you were to be looking forward to like a space game in space, which is running the same sort of like model, and it's free to play, you now have Destiny 2 as a competitor. Do you think that Destiny 2 being free to play now might become a interesting form of competition towards Warframe? And do you think if they will, it might change something in the way that Warframe is going to have to act?
I think this is really difficult because, to be honest, I don't know if Bungie have plans for Destiny 2 beyond the next 6 months, right?
Mm.
I don't know how the development process works. I feel that DE's development process is they have an idea every, they know what they're planning for the next like 2 to 3 years, right? But sometimes it can take longer and it's a problem. If anyone knows in terms of Destiny 2, do people, does Bungie have huge grand plans of what they're going to do? Please put in the comment section or the chat and say, tell us, because I'm not experienced enough with Destiny 2. Do I think Destiny 2 has the potential of becoming a direct competitor with Warframe? Yes. Now that a chunk of it is free to play, I certainly think so. Do
Mm.
I think that Destiny 2 is worth the money that they are putting out there? I genuinely don't know, because so what you were describing is you get the base game plus the first
Mm.
two narrative expansions, right?
Mm.
Then, in order to actually get the second narrative expansion, you have to pay £20. And in order to get the fourth expansion, third expansion, you have to pay
Mm.
£20. In order to get the fourth expansion, you have to pay a minimum of £30, right? So we're talking, it's either 50 or £70, depending on whether or not you want to get the season pass for Destiny 2. Plus, they have
Mm.
their own microtransaction thing, which is just a mess. Loot boxes up the wazoo, so on and so forth.
Mm. Well,
Do
go ahead.
Go on.
Well, I see. I've always been very like skeptical about what is it about Destiny's 2 monetization, especially because they had the microtransactions, you had to pay for the DLCs, and you had to pay for entering the base game. However, I do think that it's important to realize that if we look at Warframe, they run with the Prime Access system, which is more expensive if you buy the highest tier than the expansion of Destiny. Even though the expansion of Destiny comes with more content. The thing that Warframe does really right, though, is that you don't necessarily need to buy the Prime Access. You can farm it. However, it's a different model of monetizing the game, and I don't necessarily know whether I think now that Destiny 2 is free to play for a decent part, I think that it's a great way. Like, you can get in there, you can rank up some power levels, you can get past, you can have two further expansions which are completely free, which I really really like now, because you can have a taste of it. And who knows, maybe they'll always have two paid expansions, and when the next one comes around, maybe Forsaken becomes free. I don't know what their plans are. However, I think it's a different way of monetization. Instead of just releasing expansions for free and then having this thing which costs quite a bit of money for less content, which you could optionally buy, they might say, hey, we are developing this expansion, which we think is really good. And if you enjoy the game, you can buy this and get this thing that we developed added to the game for like a lower price than the Prime Access. I don't think that one is necessarily worse than the other one. Not as far as I'm aware of right now, especially now that you don't have to pay the upfront price. Loot boxes, yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of that. However, I just put up a poll about whether people are now interested. Like, do you consider playing Destiny 2 now that it is partly free to play? And I know one vote went kind of wrong, where it's like one no was kind of because someone typed in Destiny 2 instead of like, and it counted as a 2. But a lot of people are saying yes, like, I will consider playing it. Like, whether you will stick around, whether you will enjoy it just as much as Warframe, like, I don't know, but like in you don't know. It's like you'll have to figure it out. If you start playing, see if you like it. If you don't like, you don't like it. But I think that it's very interesting that a large part of the people that are watching, which I do think are people that play Warframe, are now interested in checking it out.
I think one of the bigger things about playing Destiny 2 is one, it's no longer under the control, the reins of Activision.
Mm-hmm.
And so everything now is on Bungie. No matter
Mm-hmm.
what they do, it's on Bungie. And yeah, I'm interested to see where they go with this. Now, you say um it's only, let's say, £50, right? How often are the expansions going to come out, right? Are we talking the expansions are only going to come out once every year?
I think we've seen once a year with Forsaken being last year and Shadowkeep being this summer.
Yeah. So, you know, the big thing about Destiny 2 is that under Activision's reign and control,
Mm-hmm.
the primary content was on the online PvP multiplayer, right?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't about the single player.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone said that the amount of single player content was reduced because they want, like, if they're going to focus on that sort of thing, I'm not interested, right? I'm
Mm-hmm.
not interested in fighting other players. I want to work with them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And granted, Destiny 2 has, I don't know how many worlds, right? Like, I think it has maybe six, right?
Mm-hmm.
6 unique environments that are absolutely tiny, not procedurally generated in any capacity. Warframe has, God, what, 20? 15 to 20?
Mm-hmm.
As you said, Warframe is completely free to play if you don't want to pay for the Prime Access. I pay for the Prime Access every time. I pay effectively £30 a month for a game that I could pay nothing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I'd rather pay £30 a month for a game that I know I'm going to get enjoyment from, even if it's just repeating the same old shenanigans with my friends, than a game that its limited content will see me completing the main campaign, not any of the expansions, in 6 hours.
Yeah, I do think that it's like it's the way you experience it, but I think it's also a very personal taste in the way that you experience it. Because I would say that even though like I want to state I haven't played through all of Destiny yet. I'm going through the second expansion now. I'm going to be going through the third expansion soon, later, and then maybe for fourth or fifth, but we'll have to see, or the final two. But I do think that yeah, the especially the original story was not the greatest. But I think that when it comes to the cinematic style, when it comes to like the way that they present things with music, if it comes to like the tile the tile design, it's really good. And on some parts, I would say it's even outclassing Warframe in some things. But those are some regards in which Destiny might be better than Warframe. And I think that we're then like picking things or like it's better in this thing, it's better in that thing. Of course, they're two different things. So they're gonna be different, and more focused in different parts. I think that a focus on PvP, I do enjoy co-op and like story content, but I also think that Warframe could do with a very functioning PvP, which sadly they do not have because PvP, if like Conclave would work pretty well, then that would be content for a lot of people to stick around for because PvP content plays itself because like every match is different even though you're playing on the same maps. Now, is one right or is the other right? I don't know, but I do think that it's really interesting to see that a lot of people which are within the Warframe community are interested in going to Destiny to try it out. Now, what will
Yeah.
come from that, I don't know. But it might be that that they might like it, because there are things, especially like when I played Vanilla Destiny 2, I was like, I don't know. Now that I'm touching the expansion, I'm like, well, I'm gonna be infested more. I'm gonna find out a little more and see. Like, I'm really really open to it, and I think that it might be good if Warframe gets a real competitor. Like, if there's like some real competition between the two. I think that would be really really nice for everyone, because the more the better the fiercer the competition, the most of the time it gets better for consumers. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I think it's interesting. Like, I'm really excited. I didn't expect so many people to come forward and say, I've never
Yep.
played Destiny, but I want to try it now that it's free. I'm like, actually, like, that makes me happy. Competition breeds innovation. Ralance, you're absolutely right about that.
Yeah, so I can completely agree with that, and I hope it has a positive impact for Warframe. I
Mm-hmm.
think that Anthem was a victim of EA. You know,
Mm-hmm.
EA wanted a paid for Warframe,
Mm-hmm.
um, and it failed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know what's going to happen with Anthem, whether or not BioWare is going to somehow magically pull themselves away from EA,
I think they
or whether
recently abandoned their roadmap.
Anthem.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. But I don't know. Maybe, hopefully, Destiny 2 will start seeing more content that because they're now not supported by a publisher. They
Mm-hmm.
have to now go the same route as DE.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah. I think it's going to be really, really interesting. And honestly, it's a bit of a side topic, but like the reason I asked, I wanted to touch on this is, first of all, because I think it's an interesting development that we've recently seen occurring, but also, as we were talking about, like, you can't necessarily say we take. Like development time and development efficiency isn't something that you can really quantify in a math equation, and we can't really judge from our end or at any point in time as to like how efficient DE works and how well they work. But given that they'll probably be doing their utmost best right now, do you think that there's any place in which there could be improvement when Destiny 2 becomes a fiercer competitor to Warframe? Like, is there anything that you could imagine changing or improving for the better when there becomes maybe this place where like we have two entities kind of like competing for the attention and the play style, the playtime of a player, which might now be attracted to both?
Yes, I think the big thing about this situation is basically I'm going to echo what Raul said in chat. Competition breeds innovation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So instead of doing the same, they might turn around and go like, right, we need to be able to pump out open worlds faster. What can we do? We need to pump out cinematic quests faster. What can we do? We need to be able to, produce this stuff faster, work smarter, work smarter, not harder, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like things like the arbiter assessments. I have a formula to producing an arbiter's episode in a few hours as opposed to a few days, right? And doing the secret glyph, not the glyph hopper, the the Twitter bot, right? The
Mm-hmm.
whole point of that is to increase word of mouth further than hoping something like YouTube will just do the job for us, because evidently YouTube doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
you know
Yeah.
so work smarter, not harder.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I think
Well,
DE can learn from Destiny 2's success. I just hope it does succeed.
yeah. No, I hope for both games to succeed. Also, it started raining really, really hard, so had to close the window there. But yeah, I think I'd be really excited for the innovation. I think that it could also bring extra life into Warframe. If Railjack doesn't do it, maybe this competition might like give it a little bit more. And like, I would love to have a world where we have Warframe and Destiny trying to like throw out extra things to like best each other. Like I think that would be the best for us all. Yeah, I think that we've covered the topic pretty well. I don't know if you want to like round it out with a conclusion going over things, but if not, then I think it's time to go to questions. Where if you guys want to
Well,
ask us any questions, feel free to.
I've said, is Warframe too ambitious for its sake? I have said no. Right? What are
Mhm.
you saying?
I think that right now it's getting dangerously close. I think that Railjack for me is where they need to prove themselves because they are saying the same things that they've been saying around the open worlds, and I don't know whether that really worked. I think that this general feeling of that things that like the steam is like we're losing a bit of steam in especially during the downtime is also visible if we look at the steam charts. So either Railjack comes around and becomes a big smash hit and that just makes this time worth it, or we will hopefully see a change in the way that they develop and make things more worth it to be like, complete with the game, done like throughout the complete with your progress in the game, but still it's a fun time to hang out instead of what it's turning into now, more of a waiting game. So I
Yeah.
think we're not there yet, but we might be close.
Yeah. Cool. I cannot see any questions.
No.
I'm hoping someone will have a question. Zachamus, I'm looking at you. Why
Woo!
aren't you asking us a question?
Did Sakamus promise you a question?
No, but I'm going to say he did. Zachamus, you promised me a question.
Mm-hmm. Sakamus says, I don't think they're being too ambitious, but I definitely feel they're creeping up on biting off more than they can chew.
Yep, I agree with that. Come on, Zachamus, give me a question.
Yeah, if anyone wants to ask a question, whether it's Warframe related or whether it's anything related, I think
Here
we
we
have
go.
one.
So, YT... I can't read that because the font is
Jackery.
so... There you
Jackery
go, right.
says, would you say Warframe is dying?
Well, we're all dying, but it's like, okay, death is inevitable. I hate to be so morbid,
Death is
but
temporarity. My existence is forever. I cannot be destroyed.
no, right? Get off the word at it. Anyway, yes, it will die eventually. How long will it be? God knows. Maybe Railjack will revitalize it so much that it can survive for another 5 years.
Mm-hmm. No, I don't think it's dying or anywhere close to dying either. There's if you take a look at the Steam chart where we just looked at, we're now at 60,000 today average players or like concurrent players. If we go to like 2013, they were only at 20,000 or below that.
Yeah.
Whenever you're developing a game, there's like a minimum number which you need to hit as consistent online players to make your game be successful.
But
And
one thing to point out, though, that minimum number has risen.
yeah, that
Right.
changes. That changes depending on like the needs of your studio. If you grow your
Yeah,
studio
exactly.
larger, the number goes up. We don't know what that number is. DE knows
Okay.
that number. If it goes below that number, they might have to change it. That doesn't mean if they hit that number, the game has to shuts down. But I do think that if we go there, like we might see DE experimenting with different things.
Yeah.
But I feel that like the amount of players that are playing right now, like it will keep the game going, even if
Yeah.
like updates aren't as spectacular anymore. It will still go on for like a year or two, if nothing happens. So
Right.
yeah.
Vavency Avon asks, "How good are you at Lenaro?" I am pro player. No one can beat me at Lenaro, except for maybe Michelle.
I was in the winning Lenaro team in the very first Lenaro tournament, and we beat Rob, Mogamu, and Rebecca absolutely completely off the field with the best Lunaria team ever. They said they won, which they didn't because they had a 10-point penalty. So that means that instead of what
Right.
they're claiming 11-3, we won 3-1. So we're great.
Nazareth asks, do you think that that as the have grown to their size, the longer content droughts may be because of lack of management between the different teams, i.e., they are quicker because they were leaner. They were quicker. No, I think it's because they are trying to innovate more. They have like bigger passion projects.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I s-
Micah. From
mm,
watching the GameSpot documentary, I got the feeling that Steve is a bit demotivated. Did you guys feel the same? No, I actually feel that he is more concerned than anything else.
mm-hmm. I saw an interesting one right here by Maldeep say, do you think they're avoiding the big issues with dev streams lately instead of sticking with softer topics? So they're avoiding big issues and sinisters and tackling softer topic easy, like new frames as cosmetics. If so, is that related to the backlash they had for a melee rework, in your opinion? I think that one of the reasons why we started the FrameCast is because it's really tough to talk about bigger issues, because a bigger issue, like, let me actually give you the example, the exact thing that led up to me wanting to do this thing. And Drew, I did like joining in at the right time, and we started off, was the Arcwing Itzel thing. The Itzel, like, if you don't know, Warframe has Arcwings, which are transportation devices on the open worlds, and they compete with K-Drives, which are these hoverboards. And there's one Arcwing that was really, really good, which is the Itzel. And if you use Blink, you can speed across the map, and there's nothing better. So if you want to go fast across the plains of Eidolon or the plains of Fortuna, you pick that one, which is basically what everyone picks because they just want to go fast from point A to point B. And then the issue came across on the Devstream where they were like, well, we might want to remove Blink. Like, should we remove Blink from the Itzel? Should we change it? Should we make it slower so that other Arcwings will be chosen as well? And I think that topic for me was like, well, if you think about it, it's like, yeah, sure, you want people to have variety, but then it's like, well, is it necessarily a problem that one Arcwing is being chosen over the others for one specific task? If the Itzel was designed to be fast, is it a problem that's being chosen as the primary thing to be fast? It's like, I don't think that that's necessarily a problem. But then you dig deeper, and it's like, well, are people using Arcwings only to go fast, or are they using them for the other tasks? Well, mostly they're just using them as transportation devices. Well, what if we make K drives faster? Well, then they would kind of be unwieldy. So then, do these things fulfill the same role? At the same time, well, is the Itzel the fast Arcwing, or is it just overall a way better Arcwing? And there is so much, there's so much to bigger issues that you can, like, we can spend 2 hours talking about those things and still not be entirely sure about it. So on a dev stream where they have a lot of topics where they have to touch on, I can really understand where it's like, if there's a big issue that you want them to talk about and they're not talking about it, it feels bad. But it's really tough to, like, appropriately, like, touch on and discuss big issues on a dev stream because there's so much you need to consider.
I would argue the dev stream is there to sell the game. It's there to sell the product.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have relevant stuff to talk about, then people ain't gonna buy the product. If you're talking about like negativity all the time, people aren't gonna buy into it. Whereas if you talk about the new shiny feature, the new shiny spoiler on the car that helps the car stick to the road even better, people are gonna buy into that more. Things like the Ember and Valban rework, they had stuff to show off. They didn't just haphazardly had that. They had that planned. Rebecca planned the content that they were going to show off, and she brought it with them. I mean, it's not like, oh, you're talking about the Ember rework. Let me just go spin that up. I just happen to have a copy right here. And here's one I did earlier. Sorry. But it's, the dev streams are constructed. They are designed so that they are selling the product.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why you might see a lot of skins. It's something that I talked about like 2 years ago, where I feel that, like, dev streams want to sell things. And if you put out a skin, even though we know it's not a new Warframe, it's like, there's a new skin. It's like, you don't have to design an entirely new Warframe. You can just have a new skin. And that if people aren't necessarily aware of what Warframe is, they're like, there's a new content drop. It's like, it sells it. So yeah.
Yeah.
Let me
Cool.
see. Did I hear Plains of Fortuna? Yeah. They're Plains of Fortuna.
Well, certainly no Plains of Eidolon. I mean, that thing's hilly as hell.
Yeah, dude. All right. Are there questions that you want to jump on?
No, I think really we're done here.
Mm-hmm.
I think it might be a good opportunity for maybe ending this 10 minutes early, and I can go play Code Vein.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Guys, I want to say thank you so much for tuning into today's FrameCast. If you want to continue to support the FrameCast around here, make sure you check out Xenogalleon at youtube.com/Xenogalleon or youtube.com/10 o'clock. Check out my YouTube channels, which will probably be thrown in there. And also, if
Well,
you
don't
want to
say them, because remember, it's going to
All
be
right.
on the highlights.
Make sure you check out youtube.com/Michel Postma, or even more importantly, actually, youtube.com/PostMalone Games. So I might be starting to upload on the main channel like somewhat soon. And if you want to support us to actually keep on doing this, and you want to pitch in some, the Patreons, patreon.com/Xenogalleon and patreon.com/Michel Postma are always open. But it's never a thing that you need to do. It's your money. You choose what you do with it. You're
We
not
do
obliged to
appreciate
give
it, though.
things, but we do really appreciate it if you throw in a little something for this free content. Yeah, thank you so much for watching the 15th episode of the FrameCast. I can't wait to see you guys all next week for